India has this massive dream, right? To become a global technology superpower, a place where the world's most advanced manufacturing happens. But that high-tech dream is slamming headfirst into a very low-tech crisis, one that's all about water. Let's dig into how these two are on a collision course.
Okay, just look at this number for a second. 4.8 million. What on earth could that be? That is how many gallons of water a single, large semiconductor factory needs every single day. To put that into perspective for you, that's enough water for a city of 60,000 people for an entire year. And this is the exact industry India is betting its future on.
And that really gets to the core of the issue here. India is throwing itself into a very, very thirsty tech revolution, is trying to carve out its place in the global supply chain for what is arguably the most critical component of our modern world, the semiconductor chip.
With its semiconductor mission, India is going all in, attracting an absolutely massive amount of investment. The goal is to build out the entire ecosystem, from designing the chips to actually making them and then packaging them. But it's that middle step, fabrication, that has this just ferocious appetite for water. This is where you're washing and rinsing silicon wafers hundreds of times, and that process needs a shocking amount of water to keep everything perfectly clean.
And we're not talking about tap water here. Not even close. We're talking about something called ultra-pure water, or UPW. This stuff is basically engineered. It's filtered so intensely that any tiny particle is gone. Why? Well, because on a microchip, a single speck of dust can create a defect that ruins the entire chip. And just like that, you've crashed a multi-billion-dollar production line. There is literally no substitute for this stuff.
And that leads to this really fascinating problem called the purity paradox. See, India is a huge producer of industrial chemicals, but the gap between a standard chemical and the hyper-pure version you need for chips, well, it's a massive chasm of engineering and investment. It turns a regular commodity into a huge strategic problem, forcing India to import the very thing it needs to fuel its high-tech ambitions.
So you've got this incredibly specialized, incredibly thirsty industry, and it's being built right in the middle of a national stress test, in a country where the fight for every single drop of water is already intense.
I mean, just look at this chart. It lays it all out. When you compare India to other major developing economies like China or Brazil, it's not even in the same ballpark. With a water stress level over 66%, India is an extreme outlier.
And here's the scary part. This problem isn't getting better, it's getting worse. The amount of water available for each person is already what's considered water stressed. But the projections show it just keeps going down, pushing the whole country closer and closer to absolute scarcity. And that just makes the battle between people's needs and industry's needs even tougher.
You know, this collision between high-tech dreams and low water supply isn't some problem for the future. It is happening right now today, and it's creating a landscape of what you could call ghost factories and hidden costs that are a real drag on the economy.
And this is what that looks like. Billions of dollars have been poured into these amazing modern factories that are now just silent. They're called stranded assets. They can't run, not because the tech is wrong or the money ran out, but because they can't get the most basic input of all, water. These are the ghost factories of India's water crisis, already decaying before they've even started.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The big global financial players are raising the alarm. Moody's recently said this water shortage is a direct threat to India's credit health. That basically means it makes the entire economy more fragile and less able to handle any kind of shock.
Now, for the factories that are able to run, they're paying a kind of hidden tax. When they can't get water from the government, they're forced to buy it from private water tankers, which are way more expensive and totally unregulated. That extra cost, when you scale it up across an entire industry, directly chips away at the Made in India advantage on the world stage.
So this isn't just about one or two factories, or even one industry. This water crisis is starting a kind of economic domino effect that could impact the whole country's future.
Okay, here's another number for you. -6%. Just think about that for a second.
Yep, that's the potential hit to India's entire GDP by the year 2050 just because of water scarcity. That's according to the World Bank. A 6% cut to your economy is a massive, massive blow. It basically slams the brakes on that whole superpower dream we were talking about.
Okay, so this all sounds pretty dire. I know. The stakes are incredibly high. But what if the solution isn't about finding more water? What if it's about completely changing how we think about water? It might be time to pivot to what's called the circular future.
This image really captures the shift in thinking we need. Instead of the old linear path, take, make, dispose, the goal is to create a closed loop, a circular system where water is constantly being recovered and reused.
And that's the whole concept behind a water circular economy. It's a fundamental change. Wastewater is no longer a problem you have to get rid of. It becomes a valuable asset. It's a brand new, reliable, local source of water for everyone.
So how does this actually work? Well, it's pretty straightforward. First, you treat the wastewater using some really cool advanced tech. Second, you don't just get water back. You can pull out other useful things like energy. And third, you can actually create whole new revenue streams by selling that treated water and other byproducts back to industries. You turn a cost into a profit. And the economic payoff here could be staggering. We're talking about a potential market worth over $8 billion US. It could create over 100,000 new jobs. And get this, the recycled water can actually be 10 to 18% cheaper for industries to buy than fresh water. It's a total win-win.
So that brings us to the final question, doesn't it? The old path of just taking more and more water has led to ghost factories and a threatened economy. This new path, the circular one, looks like a massive economic opportunity. The choice seems clear, but actually doing it is the hard part. So can this pivot to a circular model secure India's economic future? That is the multi-trillion-dollar question.
So in